Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. My name's Teddy Daniels, and we have Melissa Isaak. Melissa Isaak runs the Isaak Law Firm, Attorneys for Men. And folks, let me tell you, she is nationally known for her work as a men's advocate. And I'm going to turn this over to Melissa and let her introduce herself.
Thanks, Teddy. Yeah, Melissa Isaak. When you say nationally known, it's funny because that's something that just happened because I was advocating the way that I thought people should advocate, lawyers should advocate, and it was brutal honesty. And people pick up on brutal honesty. People love it, and people want to hear it. They're a little afraid of it, maybe saying it themselves, but they love it and they gravitate towards it. So my Facebook page, and it's a law firm page, all right? I wasn't trying to be, and I don't consider myself a public figure, nothing like that. But my Facebook page took off because there was so much truth. I mean, raw truth and talking about the issues as they truly are. Okay. There's not some sort of screen narrative. So that's really how everything sort of took off nationwide, done some speaking events and whatnot. And again, centered around the raw truth and the realities of family court. So anyway, so yeah, I have this law firm. We're in our 15th year now, actually, 15 years of representing dads. We made some exceptions for grandparents sometimes, and unfortunately some men pass, and we help the grandparents stay in the lives. And we did represent a woman to get her out of jail. Get this, she was jailed as a third party, right? She's not even part of the divorce decree. Her husband, it was his decree. Judge held her in contempt, jailed her for 6 months. We got her out after a month, right? So we did make one exception. But for the most part, right, we represent men. Not because women aren't, shouldn't be in their kids' lives. We have this 50-50 platform. And if there's any chance, right, that both parents can be involved equally, there's no reason why they can't. And we can get into, the incentives, the financial incentives and the like of why courts generally don't give a 50-50. But anyway, that's sort of the basis of the Isaak Law Firm.
Melissa,
15 years.
let me tell you that this is an absolute honor to be collaborating with you on this. We'll get into it later, but I first talked to you a couple years ago about an issue that I was going through, and you saved the day. Folks, my name's Teddy Daniels. I'm a former police officer, a wounded combat veteran. I'm an entrepreneur. Guys, I've been through the ringer more times than I'd like to even talk about. I'm also a national media contributor. I've been on Tucker Carlson numerous times, War Room, Newsmax. I'm a regular on OAN. And besides talking about politics, I talk about culture and the war on men in this country and kind of like the sissification of our young boys. So Melissa and I, again, like I said, I've known Melissa for several years, and it dawned on me. There are so many men out there going through, I call it the impossible obstacle course of family court, whether it is divorce, whether it is custody. It's a mess, and the odds are stacked against you as men. So Melissa and I, we went over a preliminary list. And folks, what we're going to end up doing is a video series for you. And hopefully you can watch these and kind of get an idea of what to look for, the pitfalls, the traps, the outside influences in family court, the whole custody and a lot of the child support stuff too, guys. A lot of the child support stuff too is a state run. It's a moneymaker, and the family courts are all about destroying families. Society's about destroying families to make money for the state. So, Melissa, I want to start with this. Since you are an amazing advocate, and I'm not going to confuse advocate with activist, because they're two totally different things. There's a lot of activists out there as liberal attorneys. What can men look out for when they're going into court? And let's say their children's mother or their ex-wife has an activist attorney. I'm sure you've dealt with that.
Oh, dealing with them all the time, right? There's a lot of virtue signaling that goes on with these activists too. So for instance, I have a client whose wife had an affair with someone whose religion my client does not agree with. Well, because we don't agree with that religion, with the Muslim religion, and his children being exposed to that, we're racists, and we're haters, and we're intolerant, and things of that nature. So there's a lot of virtue signaling. And I think we as a society, we get shamed into being quiet. Oh, no. I'm not that's not who I am. And we feel like we have to defend ourselves. You don't have to defend yourself. You can dig your heels in and say, you virtue signal all day. I'll tell these lawyers, I'll point them in the courtroom and say, look, you can virtue signal. I'm going to sit here and defend my client's right to raise his children as he sees fit, right? So you want to look for an advocate who's not going to cower down. There's a lot of attorneys, like when you go look for an attorney, they'll say, well, number one thing is we don't want to piss the judge off. Number one thing, don't make the judge mad. Look, I've never subscribed to that. Never. I can't say how many times a judge had said, okay, Miss Isaac, that's enough. You can sit down. No, I'm sorry, Judge. I will sit down after I make my record, right? Because the judges know a really good court record will hold up an appeal. A lot of lawyers sit down because they don't want to make the judge mad. But when you're looking for a lawyer, first of all, you want to find someone who's going to fight for what you want, for your values. And you got to be careful too, because a lot of lawyers will say, well, we got this, I'll fight for you. You give them a bunch of money, and then they force you into a settlement right before court. I'm telling you, a lot of the guys who are listening to this, they know this. But on the other side, one thing that you have to understand when you're going into court is generally attorneys want to win. And put a period right there. Attorneys want to win. They don't care what they have to do to win. Okay, they're not going to let the facts or the truth get in the way of their case. And this is a lot of attorneys, and this is what I've experienced with these attorneys. So you have to make sure you go in there and you dig your heels in and you fight for what is yours. You fight for what is right. But the other attorneys, perjury, right, doesn't matter. And perjury is, I'm trying to think as I sit here, perjury has ever been punished in 15 years. And I can't say that I recall where it ever has been. Well, if something is not punished, if something is not addressed, it's allowed, it's encouraged for that matter. So you can expect perjury in family court. You can expect to be called abusive and controlling. Those are the two buzzwords against men, abusive and controlling. Now we're going to dig into this, Teddy, too, right? And Sue, you're talking about cultural changes and societal changes. And we'll talk about the Violence Against Women Act, where basically the states can make money off of the more victims that they serve. Well, we've had people that come in that have gone to these domestic violence, NGOs, and we're saying, well, my wife she's a victim of domestic violence because I control the checking account, I control the stuff, and so they said that she's a victim. What do you mean you control the checking account? Well, we have separate accounts, and she doesn't have access to mine. Well, do you have access to hers? No. So you're a victim too, right? And I don't do that. I'm not playing that game. But understand that you could live the life, you could be a good husband, you could be a provider, you could be a good husband, a good everything. You could do everything right. And next thing you know, you're labeled an abuser, right? Because somebody wants to get their way in court, or because, there's money to be made in the domestic violence industry. So there's so many red flags, Teddy, when you go into court. It depends on how the case starts. Does it start out with a restraining order against you? A lot of cases start out that way. But we'll get deep into the roots of why the system is the way it is, why it functions the way it does, and why it's allowed to keep functioning the way it is, even when everybody agrees the system is flawed and broken.
Now, Melissa, you talked about how a case starts. And I want to talk about the one weapon out there that it's about how 75 to 80% of these cases end up starting. It's called the silver bullet. It's called the ex parte order, or the PFA. And guys, what that essentially is a woman can walk in front, she can even judge shop. She can go to 2 or 3 different judges, and the judges will be like, no, there's nothing here. There's nothing here, until she finds a judge that says, Oh, okay, I'll grant this. You're abused. It's called an ex parte order because it's one-sided. All right. You're not there to defend yourself. You get removed from your home, your guns get taken, your kids get taken. This gives women leverage in a divorce and custody proceeding. Melissa, what am I missing here with this, with the whole PFA thing and the flaws in the system and how that needs to be fixed? Because as you know as well as I do, and I've seen it as a cop, over 90% of those PFAs are not valid PFAs. What's your take on that?
Oh, that's my experience as well. And the silver bullet. The silver bullet has been discussed over the last 15 years. I can't tell you how many times everybody knows it exists, but a lot of judges will say, well, they're going to err on the side of caution, right? But when you write a PFA, all you have to, it's a very low standard you have to understand. It is, are you fearful? Did he make any threats? Okay. You don't have to have witnesses. The allegation is the evidence. And that has become my issue with PFAs, is the allegation is the evidence. So here we have a court of law. A court of law is based upon standards. It's based upon evidence. All that kind of goes out the window when you're dealing with PFAs, because if I'm mad at my husband and I feel like, you know what, I'm mad at him, he did me wrong, he doesn't deserve the kids, I'm going to take the kids. The fastest way to do that is to get a PFA ex parte, which means you don't even know it's filed. You don't even know it's entered until it gets slapped on you. So you get the PFA signed, you get custody of the children, you can get possession of the house, you get child support, you can get maintenance, you can get all of these things under a PFA before you can have a PFA against you. You lost your home before you even know it. You haven't even got home from work that day. And by the way, you get home and you go in the house and she calls the cops, you have no idea there's a PFA, you're gonna get escorted out. Can I get my clothes? No. Well, can I get my, no, you can't get anything, you leave. You leave right then and there. And you better have the ability to rent something on a whim, stay in a hotel, couch surf, or you're living in your car. Those are your four options. That's it. That's it. And then you get a court date 30 days later, 90 days later, if you're lucky, by the way, right? If you're lucky. We've had PFAs get entered with no court hearings. So we're trying to file and get a court hearing. In the meantime, there's no contact with the children. You can't go to the kids' school either, by the way. I mean, the restraining order is basically you are completely restrained from your life before you even have the opportunity to defend yourself. A lot of cases start that way, and that is called the silver bullet. And digging yourself out from that hole is nearly, I'm not going to say it's impossible because we do it. We dig out, but it is a very long process, very long process. And, you know, so people say, well, after that, you know, a lot of men come to us and they say, hey, I went to talk to this other attorney. They said, look, there's a PFA against you. Let's just go ahead and settle for, you just get weekend visitation, just pay our child support, and then we'll negotiate for them to drop the PFA. Okay. So men will come in and look, we go through our options, but the best option is usually, look, you may not get to see your kids for a while, but we're going to fight this. These are lies. We're going to fight it. We have a pretty good success rate in terms of fighting these PFAs, because if they're lies, they're just that, they're lies. This is self-serving testimony to get ahead. Generally, there's no witnesses. We just fought a PFA where this woman filed the PFA and she said, I have recordings of where he's abusing me, all of this. He gets served with a PFA the same day we filed the answer. I filed discovery. I asked for all the recordings. I asked for the witnesses. I asked for everything. So it's been about 8 months. And we resolved the case. Guess how many recordings she gave? Guess how many witnesses she brought forward? None. None. And you know what we ended up at the end of the day with? 50-50 custody, no child support. 50-50 custody, no child support. So it can be done. Listen, you guys, it'll be a bit of a waiting game for you, because the fastest thing is just to give her what she wants, then she gets out of your life. But I'm telling you, you're going to regret that. But the silver bullet is the fastest way for women to get a leg up in court. The fastest way.
It is. And I've seen it time and time and time again. And Melissa, you know what? I am so excited about this collaboration and this video series. you know, we're gonna touch on different episodes on strictly a PFA. Okay, how it works, how to defend it, how to protect yourself from one, if that's even possible in today's day and age. Stats of fathers in homes versus homes where kids are raised with single moms. Okay. There's also abuse statistics out there to where stepfathers or men that these women are dating are abusing these children. Okay. Boy, brainwashing, alienation. Melissa, I'll let you touch on that one real quick because that's a serious problem in today's world too.
Huge problem. So before I went to law school, I was a child therapist. And so, and I loved it. I loved working with children because the difference between children and adults is children actually want their lives to be good. They want things to be better. I'm not convinced that all adults want their lives to be perfect and better. I think so, you know, drama plays a place. But in talking to some of these children, the children are they're torn apart. And these children would come in and say, my daddy is mean to my mom. So the question is, did you see your daddy be mean to your mom? No, no. And understand too, this child is physically damaged. The child is emotionally hurting because of the contention, because of the pain that their mama feels. And this is something they've been told. The child is hurting over something that they've been told. So you've never seen your daddy hit your mama. No. Have you ever seen your daddy call your mama a name? No. Where is your daddy? Well, he left. He doesn't want to see me. Okay. Did he tell you that? No, my mama told me that. Right. So there's all these as a counselor, as a therapist, there's all these red flags going off. All these red flags. You know, sometimes you go and you find the father, track the father down. Father's like, I've been looking for this child. I've had no idea where this child was. And then the child is being lied to. But as a parent, even if that were true, let's say, even if it were true, why would you tell a 7-year-old child that? It's going to cause this child so much pain. Why would you tell the child that at this age and stage? But they do. But parents do that.
Well, Melissa, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll tell you this too. The truth always comes out in the end. Okay. I have, my oldest son is 28 years old.
Mhm.
And about 9, 10, and I fought and fought and fought and fought. And again, you know, she wouldn't show up for visits. You know, she was constantly in contempt of court, and I'm spending thousands and thousands and thousands to keep going back to court and fight and fight and fight. And he turned 18. He's had enough with his mom. And, you know, he wanted to get out of there. So, you know, he came and stayed with me. And, you know, we sat down one night and had a conversation and how mom said this and mom said that and mom said this and mom said that. And I told him, I said, buddy, I'm not going to say a negative word about your mom. And for the parents out there, if you're going through this, never, ever, ever talk negative about your significant other or ex-significant other in front of the children or to the children. It's not a good thing to do. All right. That is still that child's mother. Just because you and this woman can no longer get along, have a conversation, even stand to be in the same room with each other, doesn't mean that your child does not look at this person like they walk on water, because that is still their mom. Okay. It's only going to backfire on you if you disparage the other party. So Melissa, I kept a file cabinet with every single court record and court paper of everything that I've ever filed throughout the years. And I told him before I went to bed that night, I said, buddy, take a look at the bottom drawer of the file cabinet. Have at it. You're welcome to read anything you want in there. You make your own decision. I'm not going to say anything bad about your mom. That's your mom. In the morning, he was up before me, gave me a big hug, said, Dad, I'm sorry. I had no idea. So, Melissa, when I say the truth always comes out, it always comes out. They may think they're winning now, but what they're doing is they're actually, when the truth does come out, the parent that does all the disparaging, that child's not going to want anything to do with. So your opinion on that?
You're exactly right on that. I mean, I have no relationship with my biological mother. The last time we had a conversation, I believe I was 17. And I told her, when you take responsibility for all the things that you've done, for take responsibility for hurting the people I love, including my father, we can have a relationship. Okay. I was 17, right? I'm not 17. I'm far from. Okay. We have no relationship now.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you this as a small child. I remember being 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old. We're talking a tiny child, right? She would say, your dad he doesn't want you. He doesn't love you. He wanted me to kill you, have an abortion when you were in my stomach. Your dad cares more about drugs and beer and fishing than he does you. Tiny child. You know, it was odd though. I never believed her. I never believed what she said. Now, my sisters, they believed some of the stuff that she had said. And there are some issues that are dealing with as adults, right? Because of this constant really inundating a child with lies, because you have to understand too, we know that we are part of our parents. If our parents are bad at that young of an age, you internalize some of that as well. But you're exactly right, because I have no relationship with her. My older sister has no relationship with her, nor does my younger sister. So here we have a woman in her early 70s now. She has 3 children, 5 grandchildren. I don't think she's even met some of her grandchildren. Has and talks to no one. So people have to understand, the people who do this is that you have control in the moment, but it's a fleeting moment, because children are going to grow up and they're going to find out the truth. They're going to find out the truth. And then the odds of you being a lonely old person are pretty good. And what I say is, people say, gosh, that's your mom. I must say this, I wish her no harm. I don't wish bad on her at all. But she has worked her entire life to alienate herself from everyone else. I'm going to give her the fruits of her labor. I mean, I'm going to let her have it. She can take it and run with it, because I don't want that in my family. But you're absolutely right. People have to understand, if you do this, you're going to retain control in that moment, but it will bite you in the butt. It's going to one day.
And I want to say this too, for guys going through a custody and a divorce action at the same time: document, document, document. Guys, I spent almost 15 years as a cop, and I kind of had it was like our Bible. If it ain't written down, it didn't happen. So through the years, as something would happen, not only would I take it down and write it down, I had a book, write it down in the book, date, time, summary of what happened, but I would also text or message somebody trusted on social media, so it would match the date and time. That way, when you walk into court, the opposing counsel or the judge can't say, oh, you just made up all these dates and times. No, Your Honor, here it is, real time, this date, this time, my message so-and-so, this is what happened. 3 days later, this date, this time, my message so-and-so, this is what happened. So document, the importance of documentation, Melissa, I think is crucial, because a lot of people don't realize that.
Listen, in a court proceeding, documentation is everything. Guys, what you don't want to do, and I've said this since day one, and it remains true today, you don't want to fall into a he said, she said. Men don't do well in a he said, she said. In my experience, women are better actors than men. That has been my experience in the courtroom. Women can turn the tears on. I've never had a man turn the tears on. Like I never have. Just turn the tears on for the sake of manipulation. I've never had that. Women seem to be able to do this. I've watched my mother do this. Okay. My mother is like 4'10", and my dad, like 6'5", right? Huge, tall Marine, came back from Vietnam. Now you say this little tiny woman starts to cry. What do we do as society? We go over there, we console her from this big bad monster, right? This killer Marine who is over in Vietnam, right? So you don't want to get caught in a he said, she said. If your state allows recording, right? Like Alabama is a one-party state. That means that you can record somebody else without them knowing. Florida is a two-party state, so you can't record somebody without them knowing. But if your state allows surreptitious recording, you need to record the conversations. I mean, if it's on the phone from the time you say hello to the time you hang up, If an argument starts to ensue, or you notice the temperature in the room kind of going up, turn your phone recorder on, guys, or turn a recorder on, record the conversation. Because we know this, there's a lot of conversations you only have one time. That's it, okay? You can't go back and say, hey, remember what you said yesterday about, okay, red flags are gonna go off. So the conversation can only be had once. And I can't tell you how many men I've represented whose PFA against them was dismissed, or who got custody of their children, or who stayed out of jail because they recorded the situation, right? Quick story. I had a guy in the Air Force, his wife drunk as a skunk. She comes home stumbling around, yelling about how horrible he is. She goes in the bedroom, right? And she takes the bedpost and she hits her head against the bedpost. Well, he's recording this. Well, she calls the police. And my husband he just hit me. He pushed me into the bed. My head is bleeding. He's in the Air Force and he has guns. Well, what happens when the police get there? The police come in, right? And you know, they come out, hand on their sidearms. If he wouldn't have played the video for them right then, he would have went to jail, and they told him this. They told him that, right? So this gentleman, 3 teenage boys, right? We got sole custody of all 3 of them because she was a lying alcoholic. Right. So, and this isn't us. And listen, some guys say, gosh, I feel like I'm just being shady by recording, or you're not being shady by bringing the truth into the courtroom. That is not being shady. That is not being manipulative. If you have 2 people saying, well, XYZ was said, no, ABC was said, you play the recording. Look, it's a done deal, right? There is no more argument. You're not being manipulative by recording your spouse, right? But just make sure you get the full context, guys, okay? Don't get a 10-second snippet. Get the full context so you're able to defend yourself when something is said. Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. And Melissa, it looks like we're getting short on time on this recording. A lot of other things we're going to end up covering and get folks. We're just like touching the tip of the iceberg on a lot of this stuff right now. For a lot of dads out there too, I want to do a lot of resources for dads as far as education, possible homeschooling. I want to talk about the war against men in society and how TV shows look at dads as bumbling idiots, and how society looks at men as second-class citizens and bumbling idiots, especially the strong alpha men type personalities. The liberal groups that are involved, that are satelliting the family court system, that come in and push their agenda as well. And folks, you can find on YouTube, there's a YouTube channel, Protecting Men, and also on social media on Facebook, Protecting Men. Folks, you know what? Melissa and I just had this conversation a few days ago, and here we are getting it up and running. And I am so excited about this because I feel something like this has been needed for some time. Melissa, I'll give you a last word here.
We are going to do a deep dive, you guys. Like Teddy is saying, schooling, we'll look at social issues, look at masculinity. And, we'll look at dating, health, spirituality. We'll look at legislation. We'll look at the courts. We'll look at every different way that men and families are under attack. Families are under attack because men were first under attack. And we'll look at the history of that. But then the big question at the end of the day, what do you do? Right? We'll give you some solutions as how you can help us, and how you can help yourself, and how you can help your family and your children and society fix this problem. So we're looking forward to bringing you all this information.
Folks, Melissa is going to provide you, this whole series is going to be the handbook or the guidebook for every single man out there walking into family court, whether it be for divorce or custody. Okay. She's the expert. It's an honor to be working on this collaboration with her. And she gets it done, guys. Let me tell you, I gave her a phone call about a situation about 2 years ago, and she definitely led me down the right path. So I love you guys. Look for our next video. Take care.